Welcome to another episode of D Sweet Nation. Today we're going to talk about Don Shula and the Miami Dolphins, who was Dan's childhood team. God rest the soul of Don Shula. Dan, go ahead and start us off because I know you are passionate about the Miami Dolphins.
Yes, I am. I've been a Dolphins fan since the age of 5 years old, way back when I was in Hawaii. And sadly, today Don Shula passed and left us. What can you say about Don Shula? He's one of the all-time greatest coaches ever in the NFL. So today we're going to be talking a lot about Don Shula, his career, and then it wouldn't be fair to talk about Don Shula unless we talked about Dan Marino a little bit. So we're going to talk about that. And as you can see, I'm repping the black number 13 today in honor of Don Shula. It's very fitting that I bought this black version of the jersey a long time ago. So I thought it was fitting to wear it today. So that's what we're going to talk about.
Okay, well, I have my NFL. I got a Raider hat on, but I got the logo right here, the NFL. I don't have a Miami Dolphins hat, otherwise I'd have it on. But I really don't watch the NFL except for the playoffs. But I got the NFL hat on today.
Yeah. Well, let's start it off. Don Shula. What do you know about Don Shula, Ray? Tell us what you know about Don Shula.
Well, I know that he has more wins than any other NFL coach. He still has the most wins, right, Dan?
Correct. Yep. The winningest coach all time. I have this written down here somewhere. 347 wins. Career record of 347,
record, right?
173, and 6. Still a record, yes.
Okay. And what else I know? I know that he coached the only undefeated team. Undefeated meaning going undefeated in the regular season and winning the Super Bowl.
Yes.
A lot of people will say, well, the Patriots went undefeated in 2007, but they didn't win the Super Bowl.
They came up one game short. Yes, correct. Don Shula is the only head coach, and that 72 Dolphins team is the only team in NFL history to go undefeated all the way through the Super Bowl. The Patriots, I believe it was back in 2008?
2007.
2007? I was going to say 2006. I couldn't remember.
2008, that was your other favorite team that went 0-16. We won't talk about them today. We'll save that for the Detroit Lions topic.
Yes, but Bill Belichick, Brady, and the Patriots went undefeated through the regular season, but came up one game short in the Super Bowl against the New York Giants.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Some other things I know about Don Shula. First of all, he lived to be 90 years old, and I thought he looked great, up until, where he started to get sick. But he looked great he lived a long, good life. He's an ambassador. I think any real sports fan that's a fan of just sports, period, respect someone like Don Shula. I know I do. Bob Greasy, who was his quarterback during the undefeated season, was a teammate of my high school football coach at the University of Purdue. So just want to give Mr. Joe Ufinger a little plug there. One of the guys, there's a guy on that 72 team I know he did the prison time. I know he's, like 78 years old now. He does this all the time. Mercury Morris. Every time somebody blows their undefeated streak, he's the only person I think that really talks on camera, because I don't think he's with the guys when they pop the corks and have the tuxedos on.
No.
When like when a team goes 13-0 and then they start talking about it and then they lose, and the guys are that's pretty cool that they do that. But Morris, he did the prison time, and he's got the gift of gab.
Mercury Morris and Nick Bonacati are usually the two guys that you hear from when a team is close and then falters on the beating their season. Yeah, so it's those two guys. Nick Bonacati talks about it as well. He celebrates publicly too, but not nearly as much as Mercury Morris.
Those guys are good representatives verbally, though, because they're almost like wrestling heels, kind of, because when they talk, you literally want to kill these guys. Not literally kill them. Just get on your nerves like the way a wrestler used to when you were a kid.
Yeah.
But you know what, though? I mean, if I was on the only undefeated football team, and somebody streak got busted, I would do the same thing. I would do the same thing Mercury Morris,
It's a very, very unique badge of honor right there. I mean, how long this NFL's been 100 years now, right? We just
Yeah.
celebrated the 100th season, and there's only one team that's gone undefeated through the Super Bowl. The Patriots have come close, but that's a great feat and a great badge. I mean, all those guys wear that badge with honor. The only undefeated team in NFL history.
Yeah.
Larry Zonka is another guy that
Yeah.
gets asked about
Larry
it.
Zonka, yep.
But he's more like, yeah, yep. It's just he's not
Class.
one
Yeah, a little
one
more
to talk
class, a
about, a
little
little
more
more
humble.
class about it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mercury Morris, he's probably the, an older version of like Chad Ochocinco or T.O. or those guys that run their mouth, So he's very verbal when somebody gets close but comes up short. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Then,
I would probably guess that those same guys, if it ever did happen, would be very congratulatory to that team.
I don't know if Mercury Morris would. I don't know if he would. I think everybody else would. Morris, I think when he and I'm not trying to judge his character because I don't know the guy, but he certainly comes off like he's a real asshole. I think he would do. I think that if somebody went 19-0 and won the Super Bowl, I think he would be like the Bill Laimbeer of the Miami Dolphins. He wouldn't congratulate anybody.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I think he runs his mouth, but I would say, I mean, the odds are that you would be right. I think that would be the only guy, but I don't think he would. I know Nick Bonaconti, and I know for sure Larry Zonker would be very congratulatory of a team that did it. But Mercury Morris is probably, the odds are probably in your favor, but I think he would do it.
I think that since they went undefeated in 72, I think that, okay, we already covered the Patriots in 2007. I think that only two other teams came close to going undefeated. It was the 85 Bears, because they lost one game all year. Miami Dolphins was their only loss. How about that?
That was the team that beat them.
Shula, yeah, Don Shula and Dan Marino. That was their only loss. They went 15-1 and won the Super Bowl. And Dan, I'm not 100%. I think I'm right. I think one of Joe Montana's teams, I want to say the 84 49ers, I'm pretty sure they went 15-1 and won the Super Bowl. I'm pretty confident that they did. So they came closest also, them and the Bears.
Okay.
And the Patriots, obviously. But
Patriots obviously went through the regular season undefeated and then through the AFC Championship game, but lost in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And I don't have a problem with like when a team wraps up their division and is getting ready for the playoffs. I don't mind them resting their players for a game or two if they're way ahead or, whatever the case may be. I think, though, because it's uncommon for a team to start 14-0, I think when a team is 14-0, I think that they go for the undefeated mark. What do you think of that?
10 years ago, maybe even 5 to 10 years ago, I would say coaches would do that. A lot of the old school coaches probably have that mentality. If you're 14-0 and you're 2 games away from an undefeated season, I think 5 to 10 years ago, yes, your coaches are playing for an undefeated season because, I mean, guys like Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady. I think it was, they wanted to do that. Nowadays, though, some of the new school coaches, I don't think that they would care so much. You know what I mean? If a team is 14-0 and you have first place wrapped up in the conference, I think you see, especially in the last game, I think you see starters being rested and getting ready for the playoffs.
Even if they were 14-0.
That's just my gut. With the new school coaches, like nowadays, I think so. I don't think you'd have too many coaches nowadays, unless it's an old school type coach like an Andy Reid or a Mike Tomlin or one of the old school coaches that are still around. But I don't think a guy like Sean McVay or Doug Peterson, if those guys are 14-0, 15-0. going into the second or the last week of the season. If they have first place wrapped up, I think they're resting guys. I don't think they're caring so much about an undefeated season. They care more about winning that Super Bowl than having an undefeated season. Because I mean, look at the Patriots. What good did that do them? You know what I mean? They had an undefeated season. Nobody talks about that. They talk about losing to the Giants in the Super Bowl.
They almost won that game too. Who was it? Plaxico Burress caught that touchdown pass like a minute and a half or maybe a minute to go.
Yep.
So the Patriots were like the best team all year except for the last minute of the Super Bowl.
Yep.
But what would you do in that situation if you were, coaching, let's say, the Buffalo Bills? You guys are 14-0. What would you do?
That's tough, man.
It's in a lifetime.
That's tough. If I'm, man, because that would just, I don't know. I would have to think about it. I don't think that's a decision I can make on the spot, because if you're talking about you're 15-0, you're going into the last game of the season, and you're odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl, like kind of like the Chiefs were last year, or it would be very hard, because all it takes is like your first-string quarterback or running back getting hurt, and now you're hamstringed in the playoffs or the Super Bowl even. If you got first seed wrapped up, you're going to sit the first game. You know what I mean? You're going to get a week off, and that might play into the decision. But that might change going forward, because with the new expansion, the NFL expansion, the playoff expansion, only the first seeded team is going to get a first round bye. So in past years, it's been the first seed and the second seed. Mm-hmm. They both get byes, but with the new expanded playoffs, only the number one seed is going to get a bye the first round.
When are they're doing that the next time there's a playoffs? Is that what you said?
Yep, it's starting next. I believe this next season. They just voted it in this past offseason with the new collective bargaining agreement.
Wow. Now after the '70s Dolphins had their run, and then the new guys came along, early '80s. Dan Marino and Duper mm-hmm. and Mark Clayton and all them. Is that when you started to like the Dolphins?
Yeah, so I started to kind of be aware of football on TV probably right around 84, 85. Mm-hmm. Because when I started watching football, let's see, I believe my dad was stationed in the military over in Hawaii. That's how I ended up in Hawaii. And we were there from, I want to say 84 or 85 to 88. And that's when I started watching football. And I became a fan of the Dolphins because in Hawaii, they don't have a team. So you're watching a lot of different teams. You don't get to watch your hometown team. You know what I mean? So yeah. There's a lot of different teams on TV. So, I don't know. I was a 5-year-old kid, so maybe I was just attracted to the mascot or the colors of the uniforms or what. But for some reason, I got attached. And then the very next season, or the first season I watched in '84, they had a second-year guy named Dan Marino that was on the team. So he had the same first name as me. So, I mean, I've been attached to the guy ever since. I've been a fan of his ever since.
And nothing wrong with that. A lot of us growing up in the '80s were fans of Dan Marino. Let me ask you a question, Dan. In a lot of sports, I shouldn't say a lot of sports, pretty much every sports, when you talk about the all-time greats, people get shortchanged for not winning championships. Because Dan Marino doesn't have any Super Bowls under his wing. And I know you've heard in the last 30 years, but he didn't win a Super Bowl. How do you react to that when people judge him because he didn't win a Super Bowl?
I've been making that argument my entire life. Ever since ever since I was old enough to have those cognitive thoughts about that argument, I've been making that argument for my entire life. I will go to my grave stating that, defending Dan Marino as one of the greats in the NFL, even though there's other guys that have Super Bowls, more Super Bowls, guys that have similar numbers, but 2 or 3 more Super Bowls than Dan Marino does. Mm-hmm. I don't think, and this is kind of what plays into, a Brady debate as well. I don't think I don't believe that you can directly correlate Super Bowls to just a quarterback. You know what I mean? There's 11 other guys
Yeah,
on
but the
the or
quarterbacks
10.
are the guys with the win-loss record, though.
I understand that, but there's 21 other guys on the field. You know what I mean? That play both ways. You know, I always bring up like uh, uh, Trent Dilfer has a Super Bowl ring. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Joe Flacco has a Super Bowl ring. I'm escaping on the guy's name. He was a quarterback for the Tampa Bay Bucks when they won the Super Bowl. I want to say Brad Johnson.
Brad Johnson.
Brad Johnson. Yep. I mean, they have Super Bowl rings. So I don't think it's completely fair. You know, it's different when a guy wins 3 or 6. You know, like Brady has. I think that's a different argument. But I don't think you can solely place Super Bowl wins on a quarterback. You know what I mean? Nowadays, you know, primarily you see a lot of quarterbacks winning the MVP of the Super Bowl because it's become such a passing league. But in years before that, you know, you had different guys winning the Super Bowl MVP. So you might have, you know, a guy like if you can't remember the guy's name. He was Super Bowl of. There was one guy that was Super Bowl of the Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl victory.
Hasselbeck. Or no, they lost to the Pittsburgh.
He was a linebacker. I can't remember. I'm blanking on his name. He was a linebacker. He got like an interception return for a touchdown, and he was named Super Bowl MVP. You know, a guy for the I think his last name. What was his name? Dallas Cowboys defensive back had like 2 picks in a Super Bowl.
Larry Brown. That was Larry Brown.
Larry Brown. Yep, and he was named Super Bowl MVP. So, you know, I don't think I'm not one to say, you know, if you win a Super Bowl, it's because of the quarterback. You know, you have 21 other guys on the team. So there's going to be teams like the 2000 Ravens that win it by defense. You know, I think the second Ravens Super Bowl was won on the defensive side as well. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of other positions on the field. So I've had that argument my entire life, and I'll go to my grave putting Dan Marino above some of the quarterbacks that have Super Bowl rings just because of his physical attribute. So, we'll get into those a little bit later.
Okay, because I was just getting ready to ask you: is Dan Marino better than Tom Brady?
Okay, I'm going to say this, and then we're gonna talk about some Shula stuff for a while, and then we'll get back to it. But
okay.
I think Tom Brady is one of the smartest and safest quarterbacks in NFL history, right? He's a very mental quarterback. He doesn't make mistakes, right? He doesn't throw a lot of picks, but yet he didn't have a ton of seasons where he threw for a lot of yards. Like physically, Dan Marino's far beyond Dan Marino as a quarterback as far as physical attributes and the ability to play the quarterback position. It's kind of like, you know, the gunslinger or the game manager. You know, like Tom Brady's the ultimate game manager. He doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't throw interceptions. Dan Marino, guys like Dan Marino and Brett Favre, they're like the ultimate gunslinger quarterback. They just have a gifted arms and ability to make every throw, and you can just do unbelievable things with the ball. So while Tom Brady has more rings, and you could say Tom Brady's a more successful quarterback as far as physical attributes and the physical ability to play quarterback, Dan Marino is far beyond Tom Brady, in my opinion.
Okay, let's get back to Don Shula, like you said.
I'm just going to read some facts about Don Shula and his career. Don Shula actually played football as well.
Coached the Colts, the Baltimore Colts? He
did. He was drafted. Don Shula was drafted in the 9th round.
Wow.
Pick 110, by Cleveland. And then he went on to play for the Colts and the Redskins.
When did he play? Like, what was the decade that he played in?
Oh man, why did I write that down? I want to say it was in the 50s or something like that.
He played in that man era.
Man, yeah, yeah. Why didn't I write that down? I want to say it was back in the 50s. Um, but do you happen to know where he started his coaching career?
Head coach or as an assistant coach?
As an assistant.
No, I only know that he coached Baltimore and Miami.
He was the defensive coordinator for our Detroit Lions from 60 to 62.
Oh, no, didn't know that.
Yeah. Um, Coached Lions defensive coordinator 60 to 62. Then he became the Baltimore Colts head coach.
Too bad Detroit wasn't smart enough to offer him a head coaching job.
Right?
Right, go ahead,
Yeah,
man.
just
Go ahead.
just imagine if they would have promoted him to head coach, what we'd be,
Well, one of our next episodes, you and I are going to write down in any sport just what ifs. We're going to write some what ifs down.
Okay.
And that could be one of the what ifs. But
yeah, it's very cool. I always like that. Side note here, a guy named Dave Damashek. He's a NFL reporter, columnist, journalist for the NFL Network. He used to do a little skit on NFL Network called the NFL, and he would go through different scenarios about like what if, basically. So
those are always fun to talk about.
Yeah. Started off with the Lions D coordinator, went on to be the head coach of the Baltimore Colts after that. And then in 1970 was hired as the
What
Dolphins.
years did he coach Baltimore? Head coach?
I want to say it was 63 to 69.
Okay, so
Yeah, I think he coached
he won
seven seasons.
So he won a Super Bowl with Baltimore. Is that right? 1969?
No,
that was it. No, the Chiefs won that one. They won. Okay, the Colts won a Super Bowl
Baltimore
somewhere
Colts?
like in the first 5 or 6 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
I think it was 1970.
Yeah, let me look it up real quick. Yeah, Baltimore Colts. I don't know.
Baltimore, they won it in 1970, but I don't know if he was still with Baltimore or was with Miami in 1970. But the Super Bowl 5 is the Super Bowl that they won.
2 Super Bowls, 1971. It's when they won their first Super Bowl.
Baltimore?
Yeah. So that was
but that was January of 1971.
Yeah,
right?
he was already coaching the Dolphins then.
When you say 1971, you're talking about the Super Bowl was played in like the winter of 71, right?
Yes.
So that would be the 70 season. Did he coach the 1970?
Yes. 1970 was his first season with the Dolphins.
Oh, okay. So he just left Baltimore. Otherwise, he would have won a Super Bowl Baltimore.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
He coached. Who did he coach up? He had Mad Dog Mike Curtis, Johnny Unitas, Coach Johnny Unitas.
Yeah.
That's like the big names of the Colts that I know.
He had a winning record pretty much everywhere he coached as a head coach. I mean, even in Baltimore, he had a record of 71-23-4, which is a winning record. For the Dolphins, ended up having 347 wins. The one, I guess, black mark on Don Shula's career, or not so positive mark, I should say, is he wasn't that great in the postseason. Even though he advanced quite a few times in some short years, he was 19-17 all time in the postseason. So it was almost 50%, 500 in the postseason. He played or coached in 5 Super Bowls, 71, 72, 73, 82, and then in 84.
Yeah.
Or 85. What was it?
It was the 84 Dolphins.
Yeah. Yep.
It was like January 85.
Yep.
Yeah. And he lost to
84.
He lost to the Redskins, right? Joe Theismann and the Redskins in the 82 season.
82. Yeah, they lost to the Redskins twice. So in 71, they lost to the Cowboys. 72, they beat they beat the Redskins. 73, they beat the Vikings. 82 was the Redskins, and then 84 was the 49ers. They lost to Joe Montana and the 49ers. Excuse me, I got some water. But yeah, like you said before, the only coach undefeated season. Bill Belichick came the closest.
Mhm.
And here's a little comparison between Don Shula and Bill Belichick, because I think most would say that if Don Shula is the greatest head coach of all time, they'd probably put Bill Belichick right behind him.
You agree with that?
Yeah,
Agree?
I do. I do. As much as I hate the Patriots, I mean, you got to give them the respect that they're due. Um, the dynasty run that they've had,
Yeah,
the amount of Super
right.
Bowls. But in 20,
I if I could, I would have played for. Can't go wrong with Don Shula. Obviously, my second choice, Don Shula. I would like to play for Bill Walsh.
Bill Walsh, yeah, I mean, Bill Walsh, Chuck Noll, Tom Landry, those guys are
Oh yeah.
in the conversation,
Mhm.
definitely. Yeah, but the types of runs that these two guys went on in two different areas, respectively. You know, Belichick obviously the like 20 years of being in the postseason and winning six Super Bowls, being in 8 of them. You know what I mean? That's pretty damn respectable in my book.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm a true Patriot hater, but I got to give
I know.
respect where respect is due. Um,
Well,
but
we're going to see how good of a coach he is next year.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Hmm.
Um, big questions at quarterback and other positions. But 26 years, Don Shula coached the Dolphins. He finished first. He won the AFC East 11 times. Belichick has coached the Patriots for 20 years, won the AFC East 12 times. So
Wow.
those two guys, you know, the AFC East
I
belonged
didn't
to
realize they were that
Shula
similar.
and Belichick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And then, I mean, if it's not first, it's, I think for Shula in that entire run, they only finished lower than third place once, and that was fifth, you know, like last in that division.
That's amazing.
But those guys, if it's not first, it's like second or third. You
I
know,
knew he had good numbers other than the win column, but I didn't know that they were that good.
yeah. Yep. Uh, he was a regular season juggernaut. Like I said, playoffs, you know, it's damn near 500 record, but he won a few a couple of Super Bowls there. Um, drafted Dan Marino, 1983. And then he retired in 1995.
Yep, I remember that.
And
I
famously,
remember their last game. We'll get to that later if you want. I just
yeah,
remember a lot of fights with the Buffalo Bills and Brian Cox spitting at the fans. I remember all that. That was in the playoffs. They lost to Buffalo, but yeah, I
and
remember that. That was good. That was good football, man.
if I'm not mistaken, oh no, that's Marino. When did I can't remember when I have to look this up. When Don Shula finally did retire, was it?
I thought he got. I thought they let him go, or
Yeah,
like kind of urged him to retire. I don't know if they fired him, but they like urged. He didn't have a good
oh yeah,
curtain call like you would think that I remember.
yeah. It was 95. And
He was.
I had to double check because I was Shula and Marino both left the team in 95.
I think Dan Marino was along the line. If he's when that went down, man, it wasn't good. There was no respect shown for Don Shula by the organization that I can remember. It wasn't a delicate going out party. I
Yeah,
remember that. He got a
yeah,
raw deal.
equal.
I don't
Yeah,
know if he got fired, but he either got fired or he was urged to retire.
I think it was one of those mutual things. Like I think it's like your time is up. They had a few years there where like if I can remember, you know, they were, you know, they had that first round upset by the Jags the year that they came into the league. They had a couple years where they won the NFC or AFC East, and they were supposed to, you know, be really good and go deep, and they didn't make it very far in the playoffs. So they were having winning seasons. They were making it to the playoffs, but they weren't really doing anything. So it was kind of like one of those, and similar to like a Lloyd Carr thing, you know, where he is so successful, but you're just not getting over that hump of in the postseason like you're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I think they mutually decided for him to leave, and then that was the same year that Marino, had a hip injury after coming back from the Achilles injury, and they both walked away from the Dolphins of the same year.
Man, I wouldn't. How would you like to have given Don Shula that speech in the office? That'd been hard, man. I would have cried if I had to make that decision.
To let him go?
Yeah, man. Everything he meant, everything that he's done for the NFL, and I mean, could you imagine the Patriots just telling Bill Belichick take a hike? Basically. I don't know, man.
I mean, there's going to come a day where it is going to happen. Whether it's Belichick's decision to leave or whether it's a mutual conversation, I don't know all the details of it, but I would imagine it was more of a mutual conversation to where ownership's like, hey, I think your time here, you've given us so many great years. Your time here is done. And then Shula being like, I'm good. I'm good with that. I'm not upset by it. I'm gonna walk away. My guy Marino's walking away as well. It's a great time to step away. I mean, it'd be like if Belichick retired from the Patriots this year and seeing that Tom Brady has left. It'd be similar to that. I think where we let Brady go. We're in a rebuild kind of maybe. Let's let McDaniel take over. You know what I mean? You've done great things right off in the sunset on a good note, on a winning record. You know what I mean? I think it'd be really bad for Belichick. I personally think he's making a mistake. If I was him, I'd be hanging it up right now, because if I go and have, a couple losing seasons or a couple of seasons where I finish behind the Bills and the Dolphins, because those two teams are on the come up. You know what I mean? The Bills were in the playoffs last year. The Dolphins had a hell of a draft, and they've got a lot of pieces in place. The Patriots may be looking at third in that division. You know what I mean? Why go out on some, I don't want to say losing seasons, but he has like 2 or 3 seasons where he finishes, third or second in the division. That's not how I want to end my career. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think it's a mistake for Belichick to not hang him up right now and let Josh McDaniel take over. But we're not going to talk about the Patriots. We're talking about the Dolphins today. So
right now, I have who were some of your favorite Miami Dolphins in your lifetime? Just individual players.
Oh, well, first of all, obviously Dan Marino, Jason Taylor, Zach Thomas, Brian Cox, Patrick Surtain. Man, I think I was more. I liked a lot more defensive guys than I did offensive guys, but I remember Mark Clayton, Mark Duper. But yeah, those were some of my favorite Dolphins all time. Obviously, I loved it when Ricky Williams was there.
I wanted him to succeed there, but
Yeah, it's too bad the league's marijuana rules are about a decade too late for that guy, because if it wasn't for marijuana issues, that guy would be a clear-cut Hall of Famer.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so those are some of my favorites. Outside of Dan Marino, I think Zach Thomas and Taylor were my 2 other favorite guys ever.
That's good. Let me see. Obviously, I like Dan Marino. We're about the same age, Dan. I think everybody our age that watched football was a fan of Dan Marino.
Yeah.
Some other guys I liked. I also like Mark Clayton and Mark Super Duper, one of the best nicknames in sports history, Super Duper. I know when Marino retired, I know they don't have the record anymore, but when he retired, Dan Marino and Mark Clayton were the all-time touchdown reception combination.
Yeah.
When he retired. They're not anymore, because I remember, I want to say Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison broke the record. Yeah, they definitely don't have the record anymore. Some other guys I liked was Brian Cox, one of my all-time favorite players. I touched upon earlier about that 95, I think it was a divisional playoff, first-round playoff game or whatever. Miami was playing at Rich Stadium. And they had gotten into a big fight, like, I want to say it was a week before because it was one of those scenarios where they played each other in the last game of the regular season for the AFC division title, and then they played each other in the first round. In the regular season game, there was a big fight broke out. Brian Cox beat the shit out of Carwell Gardner, one of Buffalo's fullbacks. And then there was a big hype for the next game, and he had his middle fingers up, he was spitting at the crowd.
Yep.
I love Brian Cox, man, because he could back it up.
Yeah.
He's a hell of a football player. Some other guys I like, Mark Ingram. Remember that famous Marino to Mark Ingram play against the New York Jets where Marino acted like he was going to
fake spike. Yeah,
and then he threw a touchdown. Yeah,
that's a legendary play. I think they just did that as I think for the 100th season they just went through like the NFL's 100 greatest plays, and that was up there. I think in the top 10. I want to say that fake spike by Marino against the Jets on Monday Night Football. Yep. Another guy that I really liked. He played there for just a short time, and I wish we'd have had him more in his prime of his career. I hope I don't murder his name, but I think Joey Peters. I think it was Joey Peters.
Who was that?
Joey Porter. Joey Porter.
Oh, Joey Porter.
Joey Porter, not Peters.
After he played with Pittsburgh.
Yep, Steeler linebacker. He came over for a little while at the tail end of his career. And a guy that I wish that I would have seen play was Larry Zonka.
Larry Zonka, yeah, me
Larry
too.
Zonka. You're talking about a linebacker playing the running back position. You know what I mean? Like you're talking about Dick Butkus at the running back position.
Yep. That's a good, perfect analogy right there. That would have been the guy I would have wanted to watch too when I wasn't born. Another notable that went to Miami was Chris Carter. You know, he ended his career there in Miami.
Yep.
I thought Teddy Ginn from Ohio State. I thought he was going to have a Hall of Fame career in Miami.
Well, he's
a pretty decent career. What you say?
He's still going, man. The Bears just signed him.
I just man, if I got drafted by the Miami Dolphins, I just love their colors, man. That aqua, whatever color that is. That's just a cool color.
Aqua and orange. Yep. Since you're on receivers, let me give you some names of guys that started on the Dolphins, right? Mm-hmm. Guys like Wes Welker, who was originally a Dolphin and went to the Patriots. And then Danny Amendola played for the Miami Dolphins and went to the Patriots. And I want to say, no, I don't think I think it was all like short white guys.
Okay.
It's like started their careers with the Dolphins and went to the Patriots. I know Amendola. I think he went from the Dolphins to the Rams, or either Rams to the Dolphins or Dolphins to the Rams and then Patriots. And then Wes Welker too went from Dolphins, Patriots, Broncos. Yeah.
I'm going to test your Miami Dolphins loyalty here. What was the name of their stadium in the 80s and 90s?
The Raymond James Stadium, right?
No, that's Tampa.
Oh, that's Tampa. Oh, man.
Come on, Dan.
The Orange Bowl?
No.
What was it called? Man. What was it called, the Orange Bowl?
That's where the Hurricanes played. The Hurricanes play there.
Well, no. It's where they used to play the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, they played the Orange Bowl there, but that was also the Miami Hurricanes' home stadium. It's kind of like the Rose Bowl. Like that's UCLA's home stadium.
Yep. I guess I'm blanking on that. What?
Joe Robbie.
That's right. I knew that. I know you did. That's one of those. I don't have the memory like you do, man.
No, that's one of those. I already know that you knew it, but that's one of those you're going to kick yourself in the ass for. Like,
I knew that. Now it's called.
The owner back there was it Wayne Huizinga? Was that their owner?
No. Yeah. What? Yeah, I think it was.
I think it was Huizinga.
I think it was. Let's see.
I think the Miami Heat retired Dan Marino's number, I think.
They did, number 13?
Yeah, years ago. Yeah, the Miami Heat, they have Dan Marino, and it's a basketball jersey.
Yeah.
It says Marino 13. Nobody ever will wear a 13 for the Miami Heat.
Well, that's why I was like, after the draft this year, the Dolphins drafted Tua Tagovailoa, and I was like, I hope this guy doesn't think he's wearing the number 13 and for that team. That's off limits. He
Did
won.
they retire his number?
Oh yeah, they retired his number, but
Yeah, he ain't gonna wear that number.
Tua wore 13 for Alabama, and I'm like, I hope this guy doesn't think he's suiting up with the number 13. Like, like I'll drive down there myself and rip it out of his hands. He does that.
Yeah. That 1983 draft class with Marino, Jim Kelly, and John Elway.
Yep.
I mean, what a class. I mean, that's like up there with like when LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, Bosh, and Dwayne Wade were in the same class.
Exactly. Yep. I was just going through that. Dan Marino played at the University of Pittsburgh, drafted in 1983 with probably the most famously the most loaded quarterback draft class ever.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Right? Guys like John Elway, Jim Kelly, Ken O'Brien, Tony Eason, Todd Blackledge. And Marino was drafted after all those guys. Marino was the last guy drafted out of that group.
Was he really out all those guys you just named?
Yeah, I think he was the 27th pick in that draft. He drafted second to last in that first round.
I think he was a backup for the Patriots when they were in the Super Bowl and they got whooped by the Bears.
Yep. Elway, Kelly, and O'Brien, and Marino. Those are the four guys out of that class that had long-lasting careers. Ken O'Brien out of that group would probably be the least successful, but still had a really, really decent career with the Jets. Obviously, Jim Kelly 0 for 4 in Super Bowls.
I know, but I love Jim Kelly, though. Hey, we can't hold that against him.
So what's worse? What's worse in your mind? Marino did play in, one Super Bowl?
One Super Bowl.
Yeah. Losing 4 or never winning one? Like never going to one and losing, or losing 4 in a row? What's worse?
Never going to one.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I would agree.
I mean, of course, there's going to be fools out there that'll make fun of the Bills for losing 4 in a row. I mean, no, that's to me that's more impressive because Dallas, when they lost to Dallas twice, Dallas was better.
Yeah.
That Washington Redskins team they lost to by Mark Rippon, that's one of the greatest teams of all time. I thought they were better than the New York Giants when they lost to them. But no, man, that's four straight AFC title.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
It's pretty respected. Yeah.
Wouldn't you like to play in 4 Super Bowls? Some guys never play in the Super Bowl.
Man, it's like, yeah.
Never played the Super Bowl.
To make it to the Super Bowl, it's an accomplishment. To make it to multiple Super Bowls, and then to make it to 4 straight Super Bowls, that's something to hang your hat on. But when you lose all 4, it's almost like the losing 4 in a row overshadows getting to 4 in a row. You know what I mean?
It shouldn't though, because I don't think any team in NFL history has ever played in 4 straight Super Bowls.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so. Not played in, been in. I mean,
4 straight.
4 straight.
Yeah,
they were there. I mean, 3 of the 4 teams were just better than they were. I don't know. I mean, I'm partial to those. I liked Buffalo back then.
Yeah,
Bruce Smith. When it was snowing at Rich Stadium, I liked them.
Yeah. There's 2. I don't know. Again, not to get off onto another team, but if you ever watch the ESPN 30 for 30, the 4 Falls in Buffalo, it's a very interesting watch, and two of those Super Bowls. If it wasn't for a Scott Norwood missed kick, and I believe it was one of the Dallas Super Bowls where the night before, I think they were just not focused. I think they were just all over the place. I think a lot of the guys went out partying the night before, and it was a game where I think it was Thurman Thomas or somebody. There was a key play in one of the Super Bowls, and it was like Thurman Thomas couldn't find his helmet, right? It was like a key play, and he was supposed to be in. He couldn't go in because he couldn't find his damn helmet on the sideline. You know what I mean? So it was 2 Super Bowls. I think they could have turned out different, but Yeah, in those days, those Cowboys teams are far superior. Not far superior, but they were just better teams on those days. Um,
Yeah,
obviously,
I was cheered for Buffalo. I was hoping they'd pull one out.
yeah.
That
Um,
AFC, what was that? The AFC East division?
Yep. Again, it's same division, so it's like again, never been a real fan of the Buffalo Bills because obviously they're in the same division as the Dolphins. So, but Jets, Bills, Patriots. I tend to root against those guys. But yeah, Dan Marino, his rookie year came in 83. His rookie year, he was a starter. Made the starter in week 6. And in that year, he set rookie records for a 96 QB rating and 58, almost a 58.5 completion percentage as a rookie, and set those records. And those held for a record for a while. The Dolphins that year were 12-4, but that was his partial rookie season. Year 2 set all kinds of records, and the only guy next to this, and we'll get to a little bit later, Patrick Mahomes and Dan Marino kind of sit in this class all by themselves as far as these guys coming in their second season and just blowing it up.
Mhm.
A year 2, he set a record, and these records remained for a long time. He had 48 touchdowns in his second season, which was broken by Peyton Manning in 2004.
Touchdowns?
48 touchdowns his second season.
So
Manning broke.
you're telling me that you're telling me he had 3 touchdowns every game for 16 games. Every game, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what I'm saying. Patrick Mahomes is doing the same thing. And I'll get to his numbers a little bit later, but 48
And nothing
touchdowns.
against Patrick Mahomes. Nothing. He's like my favorite player, Patrick Mahomes, but
Yeah.
he ain't playing under them same rules that Marino, all the abuse Marino had to take.
Oh, no. But yeah, that's again,
Rules were a lot different.
A lot of these records stood for a long time before the NFL's like pass friendly rule.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that record was broken in 2004 by Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning's 7th season, right?
Yeah.
5,084 yards his second year.
How many?
5,084.
That's how many Marino had?
Yes.
His second year?
His second year. Yep. And that record stood until 2011 and was broken by Drew Brees. And it was Drew Brees' 11th season, right? So there's really only 6 guys ahead of Marino on total, or basically yards per game, right? Or total yards, right? Mm-hmm. Peyton Manning, right? Mm-hmm. And he got that total in his 16th season, right? Brady is number 1 right now. He didn't accomplish that till his 12th season. Breeze, like I said, broke Marino's record in his 11th season. Roethlisberger, 15th season. And then you got 2 young guys. One of them I'm almost embarrassed to talk about, but Jameis Winston is right above Patrick Mahomes and Dan Marino. And he accomplished that in his 5th season, which is this past season, 2019, but also established the 30-30 club. I think he's the first quarterback in NFL history to throw for 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions in the same year. 33 touchdowns, 30 interceptions.
Man.
Yeah. And then Patrick Mahomes in his second season, his first full season, he eclipsed the 5,000-yard mark and eclipsed Dan Marino's 50-84. And I think Mahomes, it was 50-96.
Don Shula and Dan Marino are the only guys to beat the 85 Bears. They gave them their only loss. You know that, don't you? On Monday Night Football.
Yep. We talked about that earlier.
I think I don't know if they are anymore, but they used to, for a long time, they were like this is a stupid stat. It really don't have nothing to do with anything, but remember they were like the all-time winningest Monday Night Football team or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, they beat the shit out of the Chicago Bears, that 46 defense that day.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, Dan Marino, other than that was the Bears' only loss.
Yep.
They killed everybody that year, like literally killed these guys. I mean, they were killing their own offensive players in practice. If you watch that 30 for 30 on Chicago, Dan Marino beat those guys.
Yeah.
And they would have played them in the Super Bowl. I I think the Patriots beat the Dolphins in the AFC Championship game. So that would have been a rematch, Bears and Dolphins in that the year the Bears won the Super Bowl, 85.
Yeah. But
Imagine
also,
that.
yeah, 1984, Dan Marino set 6 NFL records that stood for 26 years. 6 records that stood for 26 years. That's a long damn time. He
broke a lot of Fran Tarkenton's records because I think Fran Tarkenton used to have all the quarterback records until Dan Marino played or had a lot of them.
Well, it was the yards, and this is what I was going to get next to. In 1988, he threw for 4,434 yards. First quarterback to throw for 4,000 yards for 4 consecutive seasons. Dan Fouts was the previous holder of that with 3 seasons. And then Marino went on to do it a 5th time. So he's the only quarterback to throw for over 4,000 yards for 5 seasons. But I think Dan Marino's 4 was his 4 consecutive seasons from 84 to 88.
People should be listening to these numbers, man. Those numbers are astronomical, man.
This is the argument that I've had in my entire life when people talk about Joe Montana, Dan Marino, Joe Montana, this guy, for a long time it was Joe Montana was the Tom Brady, he's not better than Joe Montana. Joe Montana's got 3 Super Bowls, but Joe Montana's 10th on the list as far as some of these quarterback numbers go. You know what I mean? Marino held these records for damn near, like I said, 26 years. That was in 92. He threw for his 5th 4,000-yard season. All-time numbers, he's 5th in total yards, 5th in total TDs, and he's 15th in the list for yards per game. But a lot of those guys in that list now that have jumped to the top are more the new age, the new millennia type guys where the league is very, very pass heavy. 2007, Brett Favre broke Marino's 420 career touchdown record. 2007, Favre threw for his 421st. So that record stood from, when Marino retired in 95 to 2007 is when Favre broke it finally. So, Marino's record stood for damn near a decade or more, before guys touched some of these records.
Yeah. I heard Joe Montana's name. That's my favorite. That's my personal favorite offensive player.
Yeah. Offensive player.
Yeah. Because Lawrence Taylor's my favorite all-time player.
Yeah.
I take that back. Reggie White was my favorite player, but Lawrence Taylor is the best player that I've ever watched. But as far as offensively, I love Joe Montana.
Okay.
That's another what if. I have a what if when we do that episode. But man, here, I haven't looked at these numbers in a long time, man. And this is something Chris Broussard should be talking about on that show that he has now that kids don't know or whatever that's called.
Yeah.
He needs to have a Dan Marino episode.
That's where the argument comes from, who's the better quarterback? Who are you going to take? If you're building a team right now, will you take Dan Marino or will you take Tom Brady? If you're building a team, if you're putting together a team and you're going to build a team, who are you going to build a team around? Dan Marino in his prime or Tom Brady in his prime? And ultimately, I guess it would depend on your coaching style because obviously a guy like Bill Belichick, he wants the Tom Brady type. But a guy like Jimmy Johnson, he might want the Marino type. But
yeah, it's a preference. That's one thing that's good about the NFL is there's a lot of different opinions.
Yeah.
Between Marino and Brady?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because
based on what I know now, or
I think because I think those 2 guys are the pinnacle guys in those respects. Where Marino I think is one of the most physically gifted quarterbacks there ever has been, and Brady is probably the best quote unquote game manager quarterback type of player. So you have two different styles of play.
If I had to choose between Marino and Brady, and it has nothing to do with Marino not winning the Super Bowl. It has nothing to do with that at all. I would probably choose Brady because I think that Tom Brady made all of his teammates better on every winning team that he played on. I'm not saying Dan Marino didn't, but I think that Tom Brady's the ultimate team player. He, Bill Belichick and implemented that system, and he ran it perfectly. You know, and I agree with you, giving Belichick a lot of the credit. Brady, I just think that like we had this discussion on our show earlier in the year. I think it was you and Fred were going at it about, trying to name a lot of like superstar receivers and running backs that Brady's had. Yeah. I think he makes his teammates a little better. That might. I'm not saying he's a better quarterback than Dan Marino, but I think he involves his teammates better, and he's done it for like a real long time. And and I'm a guy that will give credit for longevity. Longevity has to mean something. Because even though Dan Marino went out with Don Shula, which was a classy thing to do, Dan Marino wasn't the healthiest guy in his last couple of years playing.
No, yeah. If it wasn't for those injuries, Dan Marino could have played a little longer. I will say, I think the one thing that they both have in common is that what you just said. They both made teammates better, right?
Yeah.
Dan Marino made Mark Duper and Mark Clayton household names. You know what I mean? I think they both made unknown guys or guys that weren't superstars at their position, made them better. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think Dan Marino, although you got to have guys that can catch the ball, because Tom Brady can attest to that from last year on the Patriots. If you don't catch the ball, that's one thing. But Dan Marino's ability to get the ball to people, that quick release and that strong arm and the placement of the ball, how could you not catch it? And Brady, I think, is an ultimate team player. Personally, and this is my personal opinion, I think I'm not taking away, and I'm trying not to take too much away from Tom Brady, but I think the Patriots' success overall in this dynasty that they've had, I think it's more to do with the system and Belichick's style and system and the way he brings in players and fits players in places and positions has more to do with their success than Tom Brady, the quarterback. Because I think you've seen the Patriots win with other quarterbacks on their team. They've won with Jacoby Brissett. They won games with Jimmy Garoppolo. Both those guys have now been, kind of successful with other teams, but you've seen them not fall off with their backup quarterbacks. Tom Brady's going down with injury, and guys like Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett have stepped up and played games and won. So, and we'll see with whoever the quarterback of the Patriots is going to be this next season. But and I'm not saying they're going to go on another 20-year run with Jarrett Stidham, but I think the system plays more into their overall success than Tom Brady, the quarterback. Now, you're not going to have that success with the garbage quarterback, but if you give Bill Belichick a viable quarterback, a guy like Jacoby Brissett, Jimmy Garoppolo, I think they win just as much. They may not have as many Super Bowls, but I think Bill Belichick could win with a top tier quarterback, no matter who it was.
So you're giving the advantage to Marino.
If I was if I was starting a team, and I'm going to give, I'd say I give an answer from the heart and from the brain. To me, I'm still picking Marino both ways because he's just too good of a quarterback. You know what I mean? My second favorite quarterback all time is Peyton Manning. You know what I mean? I think Peyton Manning's the ultimate mix of the both of them, where Peyton Manning's got physical skills as a quarterback, but I don't think anybody's been an offensive coordinator on the field like Peyton Manning has. You know what I mean? just a smart, calling plays on the field, all that trickery and Omaha and all that kind of stuff that he does. You know what I mean? I think those two guys to me are the pinnacle at the quarterback position as far as skill sets, I'll say. Obviously, we have to give the nod to Tom Brady because he's got 6, been to 8. But as far as, physical attributes as a quarterback, Dan Marino, Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, and John Elway.
Where'd you go, Dan? Oh, I heard Brett, and I hear nothing after that.
Oh, no, I said as far as physical attributes at the quarterback position, I think it's Dan Marino, Peyton Manning, and then Brett Favre and John Elway.
Oh, okay. No Joe Montana in there at all.
I throw Joe Montana into the Tom Brady group. Joe Montana didn't have a rocket arm. He wasn't throwing the deep ball, but he was a game manager. He was a smart ass quarterback. You know what I mean? And I think you got to put quarterbacks in one or two, those two buckets. When we're talking about good quarterbacks, guys with great physical skills and guys that are game managers and just don't make mistakes.
Okay. Well, let me see. I don't know if I really have a whole lot more because you know more about the Dolphins than I do. I think I gave you a list of players and some of the stuff I know about the Dolphins. I'm basing mine on remembrance, and I wasn't like a fan like you were, but I like the Miami Dolphins. Love Dan Marino.
Yeah.
Dan Marino is another perfect example why you shouldn't measure championship wins on how great somebody was. Like Stockton, Malone, and Barkley. And
yeah, exactly. I was just going to say the exact same thing. Marino, Malone, Stockton, Charles Barkley, those guys, all-time greats at their position, but for some reason, just never won a championship. 3 of those guys, you can thank Michael Jordan for that, but I know you're talking about that, but Barkley, Malone, Stockton, those guys, championships were dashed by one guy. It's a tough argument to have, because like I said, I don't know what it is, but I don't know why the NFL, everybody seems to pin, wins, losses, and Super Bowl victories solely on the quarterback position, because there's 21 other guys on that team. And yes, the quarterback is the only guy that has the ball in his hand every single play besides the center. But, there's been a lot of good teams that have won with mediocre quarterbacks, and there's been a lot of good quarterbacks to lose with bad teams. So,
well, I'll add to your point. I'm interested to hear this. I agree with what you're saying. I mean, you can make a case for when Peyton Manning won the Super Bowl against Carolina. His numbers weren't really all that great in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was a top 3 defense that won on that game.
Yeah, defense played great, and probably could have won with any quarterback that day. I don't think he played all that great. So that, I mean,
you could say
I don't know.
The Seattle Seahawks. When they won their first.
Hold on. Why does everybody give Trent Dilfer a hard time all the time? His name is always brought up. You know what? I'm not saying he was like the greatest or nothing like that, I'm not putting him up there. But I think that people only attack him like that is because his name is Trent Dilfer. His last name is Dilfer. It's like the stupidest name ever. That's why everybody picks on him. It's always him.
If the Ravens don't have that defense, they don't win that Super Bowl.
I know, but no one ever attacks like Brad Johnson for winning a Super Bowl. I wouldn't know him if I was at the Genesee Valley and he walked by me.
Well, I think people, at least me. This is just me.
Did Joe Flacco win a Super Bowl?
Joe Flacco did win a Super Bowl. Yeah.
I mean, it's always different. It's because he has a funny last name, man.
No, I think it's
and I'm not saying he was a great quarterback. But he's always the example they use because his name's Dilfer.
Well, I think at the time, Joe Flacco was a guy that was on his way to being a better than he turned out to be.
Yeah.
But I think 10, 20 years from now, Joe Flacco's name will be mentioned in the same group as like the Trent Dilfers, the Brad Johnsons, that got these mediocre quarterbacks that won championships thanks to their defense, right? Brad Johnson. I mean, that 2000 Super Bowl, I mean, you had two guys, Kerry Collins and Trent Dilfer. You know, those guys weren't like those guys were the top tier quarterbacks in the league. It was two defensive units that got them and were played in that Super Bowl.
I know,
so,
but the fact that his last name is Dilfer, that's held against him. People don't say that, but that's the reason why, because he has a retarded name, and he wasn't that good of a quarterback.
I don't think that. I just know he wasn't that good of a quarterback because he didn't have a lot of success. He didn't have big numbers. He didn't have a lot of success. He was on the right team at the right time. You know,
he was. He definitely was. You're right.
At the beginning of his career, well, I mean, I think there was two guys.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Well, Brad Johnson, yeah, but two guys that I can think of more recently, guys that were at the beginning of their careers but carried to Super Bowls and a lot of wins by their defense and the players around them, and that's Ben Roethlisberger and Russell Wilson. You know, the beginning of their careers, these guys are rookies getting drafted onto teams that had, you know, the Steelers had a top 5, top 3 defense. They had a great running game, and Roethlisberger just comes in and just has a lot of success because of the team around him. Same with Russell Wilson. You know, they had the Legion of Boom, and Pete Carroll had built this great defense, and you know, that's what that defense beat Peyton Manning in that Super Bowl. And you know, if it wasn't for, you know, Pete Carroll getting in his, you know, turning his brain off for a second and not handing the ball off to Marshawn Lynch, you know, we're talking about another Seahawks Super Bowl. But those two guys went on to prove themselves as quarterbacks, but not like, you know, the Trent Dilfers and the Brad Johnson. I mean, Brad Johnson had, you know, kind of like that guy was a journeyman quarterback for a while, but I think you'd have to say that Trent Dilfer takes the cake. It's probably the worst quarterback to win a Super Bowl, in part to his defense. So,
yeah, I would have to look at the list, but I mean, yeah, maybe, probably. But
and Joe Flacco, you know, when the Ravens won the second Super Bowl, I mean, Joe Flacco had a decent career going. You know, he got a big contract, but I don't know what happened to him after that. I don't know if the contract made him relax and not give a crap anymore, but he certainly fell off after that.
Okay, I have to ask you something. I've kind of noticed a little pattern here today. I've noticed just now when you referenced a few quarterbacks from the Peyton Manning era. Let me see. It was Russell Wilson,
Roethlisberger,
and there was another one. There was another one who had success. Might have been Brady. Oh, Tom Brady.
Drew
Brees. I don't know if you said it about Drew Brees, because Drew Brees has great numbers too. But I've noticed, like, those three guys that I just mentioned, you know, you talk about their defense and the system and this and that. Is that because you like Peyton Manning so much? And it's kind of like you're shortchanging those guys a little bit. Because I think you love Peyton Manning. I think you love Peyton Manning so much. I think anything positive that he's ever done is because he's a great quarterback. But the other guys, you know, you kind of said there's 11 other players on the field, great defenses, and not really – they really give them guys a whole lot of credit like you would Manning.
What guys? The Russell Wilsons and the
Roethlisbergers? Tom Brady, and I can't remember the other one.
Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
Well, so I think guys like Dan Marino, Peyton Manning, and then certainly to a degree Tom Brady. I think those quarterbacks, they were obviously the best player on their team, and they also had Peyton Manning was like that too. We said about Marino and Brady, where they make their teammates better. You know what I mean? Probably Peyton Manning, probably out of the three of them, probably had, I would say, more talented skill position receivers. You know, with Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Dallas Clark. but they made those guys better. Their play made their teammates better. Excuse me, made their receivers better. Like guys like Russell Wilson and Ben Roethlisberger, when they came into the league, only at the beginning of their, when they were rookies, they had the types of teams around them that they could flourish. There wasn't a lot of pressure on them. Not like, the Aikmans and the Peyton Mannings coming onto terrible teams and losing a shit ton at the beginning of their careers.
Mhm.
These two guys were fortunate enough to come into successful situations, and they had a defense and a running game around them where there wasn't a lot of pressure on them in the beginning. Now, later in their career, both of those guys came into their own and have become great quarterbacks in the league, right? They're not, I would never put Roethlisberger and Russell Wilson in a category of like the Brad Johnson and the Trent Dilfers. I think I'm a big fan of Ben Roethlisberger, and Russell Wilson's a hell of a quarterback. Does it with his arm and his leg, but those two guys were different because they had better teams around them when they first came in, so there wasn't a lot of pressure on them to come in. But they've grown into that position. Not to whereas the Trent Dilfers and the Brad Johnsons, they weren't the best player on their team. They didn't make other players better. They were kind of carried by a defense and a run game for their entire career. Certainly that was the case for Russell Wilson and Roethlisberger for their first few seasons, but they elevated to that position of the best player on their team.
Yeah. Let me see. Dilfer, when that team beat the Giants, right?
Yeah.
Andre Weathers was on the Giants.
I was just going to say, how could you forget? Andre was on that team.
Yeah, Andre. I think, man, you know what? I think Brent Hinson mentioned Andre Weathers last week.
I was going to say, we have said
Andre Weathers references.
Andre, if you're watching, we have none on purpose, but
it's never on purpose.
We have said Andre Weathers' names in every single episode of this podcast.
I mean, think about it. Even a country boy from Northwest Tennessee mentioned him last week.
Yep, and it wasn't even us. Brent said his name.
Referenced every week. Boy, well, you got me to talk about quite a bit of NFL today, Dan. I didn't. I didn't see that coming, man.
I'm trying to get you to talk about it more. It's my favorite sport, and it's your least favorite sport, but we got to find ways to mix it in. And today
I like old school NFL. I can talk old school NFL.
Yeah,
but these chicken shits that played in the last 15 years, it's hard to talk about them. I don't mean everybody's a chicken shit, but I don't know, man. These guys, I get sick and tired every single day on these guys are 365 days a year. It's NFL coverage on every station. I just get tired of it, man.
I love it. I don't get tired of it. There's no off season for me. I follow the NFL after the Super Bowl. I'm into all the mock drafts and who's got who picked where and the combine and yeah.
What exactly is a mock draft? Is it? I mean,
it's just when.
Is that where you just make up your own draft?
Well, it's experts.
Okay.
That do, let's say, after the NFL season ends and after the college football season ends, and you have a group of players that declare for the draft.
Right.
And the experts will say, once we know the draft order and who's picking where, they predict which team's going to take which player, and it's never right. Only the first maybe one or two picks are ever right, but teams don't go according to script as far as these mock drafts. But it's just what NFL nerds do when the season's over. It's like you got the draft coming up and you got the combine. It's like, oh, who's going to pick who? Who's my team going to pick? I want to try to guess who I'm going to pick. You know what I mean? So and then it just goes. It goes to the combine and the off season, the draft, and then mini camps happen, and then training camp happens, and then you get preseason. So it's just all these things are just so close enough to each other throughout the year that it's like it goes all year around. It's unlike any of the other sports because when the other sports ends, it's like you have a free agency period, and then you just have these drafts. And I think in order, the NFL draft is probably the most popular, followed by the NBA draft, and then baseball and hockey. But baseball and hockey are like those drafts aren't even on TV. I don't even know who watches those drafts, but They just don't make big spectacles of them, and there's just too many players, especially in baseball. The guys that get drafted, some of them don't even, it's not like the NBA and the NFL where they play right away. They go to
Right.
farm clubs, or this guy's in high school. He still has 2 years left in high school, and he's been drafted by the Tigers. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. But
Dan,
one thing.
I have to introduce you to somebody soon. He's a kid. He's a kid that he lives in the Tri-Cities. I think he lives in Bay City, I think. He loves sports like no one else. He might be the only guy that has a pulse that probably loves sports more than me and you. I'm going to introduce you to him. He's a nice kid. He's a sweet. He's very, very nice.
Yeah.
He does these Facebook Live videos, and he calls it a podcast, but it's a Facebook Live videos.
Yeah.
Only he's talking though. Nobody gets to talk. Like you and I, we have guests, and they get a chance to talk.
Yeah.
They only talk in their comments, and he ignores most of them. But he does a mock draft, and to his credit though, it might sound like I'm putting him down. I'm not. He really looks into this stuff. Now when he does his mock draft, he does it with trades and, this guy got pulled over for DUI. And, I mean, his mock drafts are like 4.5 hours long.
Yeah. I have a friend. I have a friend like that.
And he does like 4 or 5 different mock drafts before the actual draft.
Yeah.
And,
I
love the kid. I love the kid. He's a great kid. Little off. Little off. He's I mean this in a good way. He's got a few screws missing. He's a few tamales short of a combination plate.
Yeah.
But he really looks into this stuff, and he's really into it. I'll introduce you to him.
Yeah, I got
a
buddy.
Lions. He loves the Detroit Lions. His Facebook Live is basically Detroit Lions. That's all he talks about, Lions.
Yeah, I got a buddy I went to high school with, and I still keep in touch via Facebook. But his name's Steve Katarski. I'll give him a shout out. This dude knows. I mean, he follows baseball and hockey just as much as the NBA and NFL. And this guy can tell you who the prospects are for the Tigers and what prospects are coming up from the minors and who to look out for. I mean, probably has every league pass channel you can think of. But he's into all the major sports. He's into wrestling that way. I mean, he just follows everything down to the lower levels. And it's I can follow baseball as far as the current stuff, but I have no idea who's on the Tigers farm club rosters and who these prospects are. And yeah, so
your buddy Steve is exactly okay. I'll mention his name. I'll give him a plug. As I'm getting older, my heart is a little more warmer than it used to be. I'll give him his name is Chad Ellison. He's cool. He's a good kid. He's really a good kid. They out there in Bay City and Saginaw, they call him Sea Monk. When you see what his face looks like, you'll see why they call him Sea Monk. He kind of looks like Alfred E. Newman from Mad Magazine. Remember Mad Magazine?
Yep.
If you put his picture next to Alfred E. Newman, you literally won't be able to tell who's who.
Yeah.
No, he, like you said, farm system and who's coming up and this and that. And Chad's telling the truth. He's not making the stuff up, but he's really into it, just like the way you're. We ought to have both of those guys on the show.
Yeah, at the same time.
But we got to find something that they disagree on. We got to okay, Chad's a Michigan fan. Is the other guy a Michigan State fan?
No, he's a Michigan fan.
Okay, damn it.
Yep. He's big Tigers fan, big Red Wings fan.
Chad is all home teams. Red Wings, Tigers, Lions, Pistons, Michigan.
Yep.
But he'll give Michigan State credit and Ohio State, when they do good. I don't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chad, I can't believe I just
Well, Chad, I'm going to change the subject back to football here. One thing we didn't talk about is I didn't mention, when Dan Marino, as they mentioned, he had a lot of injury problems at the tail end of his career. Mm-hmm. 93, Dan Marino blows out his Achilles, on just an untouched, plant foot, goes down, and in comes Mr. Scott Mitchell.
Oh yeah, he was a Dolphin. Yeah,
finishes the season, has a great season, and then lo and behold, he comes to our Detroit Lions. and just never quite produced the same way for us. He was a decent quarterback, but just never got it done for us. You remember Scott Mitchell?
Yeah, I remember Scott Mitchell. I mean, that's a guy where you can say there's 11 other guys on the field. I mean, he wasn't the greatest quarterback, but he was a lefty, big lefty, man. He was, the Lions were in the playoffs just about
Yeah.
every year.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it was the 95 season. And he was the quarterback in 95. The Lions won their last 7 games of the regular season. They went on a 7-game winning streak, and they won their last game of the regular season. I believe their playoff hopes were on the line. They won at Tampa Bay. I mean, don't assess all the blame to him, Dan. There's 11 other guys on the field.
No, I get it. It definitely.
And he didn't win nothing. I mean, I'll give you credit, didn't win shit, but at least they were in the playoffs all the time,
Yeah. He didn't have 2 terrible seasons. Matter of fact, I mean, looking at it, he had respectable seasons as far as yards. I mean, first year in Detroit, threw for 1,400 yards, 10 TDs, 11 picks. I mean, that was probably the big thing. He threw as just as many picks as he did touchdowns. His best season in 95, threw for 4,300 yards, 32 TDs, 12 interceptions. It wasn't a terrible year. So
what year was that? 95?
95, yeah.
Yeah, they went on a 7-game winning streak to end the season, and they made the playoffs because of that winning streak.
Yep. But yeah, I think as far as a quarterback, for us, if it wasn't for the interceptions, he probably had a decent career, and they probably wouldn't have moved on from him.
See, when he got here, when he arrived here, all the Lions fans were happy. Big guy coming from Miami.
Yep.
I remember they went 4-0 in the preseason, his first year here, and everybody was happy. And then of course, like typical Lions fashion, they turn on him. Wayne must go. I really liked Wayne Fonts, and that bothered me. The Lions fans ran him out of town. But Mitchell, he was better than Trent Dilfer. How's that?
That's not hard to do, though.
I ain't saying much, but and Brad Johnson, and fuck him too.
Oh man,
yeah, he was a Dolphin. Who are some other? Okay, now that this is Miami Dolphins Day, let me see. Chad Henne, he was a Dolphin. Jake Long, number 1 overall pick from Michigan, with the Dolphins.
Yep. Oh, I forgot. I'm terrible. That sucks. I forgot all about Jake Long. Jake Long had a great career for the Dolphins, and first overall pick. Yeah.
May not want to be on our show now because you didn't reference. Oh man. Good thing, Jake. Good thing I mentioned you, man. Just maybe it could just be me and you. We don't need Dan for that show. No, I'm just kidding. One of the best names of all time, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as a running back.
Yeah.
One of the all-time names. Yeah. So a lot of good Miami Dolphins, man. Good. Miami would have been a nice area to grow up in with the U. Miami Hurricanes, the Miami Heat, with Shaq and D Wade and LeBron James and all them, and Dan Marino. Would have been nice to have grown up down there.
Yeah, it would.
Florida Marlins, when they were, winning.
Yeah. Let's see. I got this list up. The 50 best Miami Dolphins, and we've said a lot of these names: Dan Marino, Jason Taylor, Zach Thomas, Bob Greasy. We didn't mention Bob Greasy.
Yeah, we did. I said Mr. Ufinger was a college teammate.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Larry Little, Richmond Webb.
Is Manny Fernandez in there?
I haven't got to him yet.
Okay.
Let's see. Mark Duper, like I said. Vern Den Herder.
Mark Clayton has to be in there.
Clayton. Yep, Mark Clayton, number 13. Sam Madison. If that's the guy, was Sam Madison, Patrick Surtain. Those 2 guys played alongside each other at defensive backs. Dick Anderson, Jake Scott. Yeah, a lot of good players played for the Larry Zonka, Newman. Nick Bonaconte we mentioned. Curtis
Was Paul
Johnson.
Warfield, was he a Dolphin?
I haven't seen his name, not on this list yet. I'm trying to seeing a lot of names. A lot of these names are from the 60s and 70s. What did you say, Manny Fernandez?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on there.
He's on there. He played with Greasy and all them.
Defensive line. Paul Warfield. Larry Gordon.
Warfield?
Yep.
Cool. Steve Levels would like that name.
Keith Sims, Patrick Surtain, Ricky Williams.
I think Paul Warfield, I think he played with Jack Tatum and those great Ohio State teams.
John Offerdahl.
Oh, yeah. Remember him. Remember Bernie Parmalee played there?
Yep. Brian Cox, Bernie Parmalee.
Cox, yeah. Is Parmalee on that list?
No.
Oh.
Parmalee, I think Parmalee didn't play very long. Wasn't Parmalee the running back that he was like UPS? He worked for UPS before he got signed with the Dolphins.
Yeah, he was. He did have a weird job or not a weird job, but he did have a job like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
they brought him in off the street. Yeah, he ended up started.
I think that's pretty cool.
Running back for a few years.
I like stories like that.
Yeah,
like Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner bagging groceries before he won the Super Bowl,
Yep. Iowa Barnstormers playing in the Arena League, bagging groceries, and then the dude goes on to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, this was a fun Miami Dolphins NFL topic, man. Pretty good. Yeah. And this was last minute, Yeah. Because we really didn't know, last night, we didn't know what we were talking about today.
No, we didn't.
But it was nice to honor Don Shula, though, because, when I think of Don Shula, obviously I think of the undefeated Dolphins. I think of his tenure, when we were growing up. But, like NFL films with Steve Sable, you see Don Shula.
You see him on there a lot.
You see Don Shula, you see that, like, sunlight in the background with the glare.
Yeah.
It was nice to honor someone like him.
Yep. The all-time winningest coach in NFL history. As far as regular season goes, it's just fortunate he couldn't win more Super Bowls, but
still got an undefeated season though.
Yep, undefeated season, and most wins in the regular season, and a couple of Super Bowls to his name.
Yeah. 2 Super Bowl wins and 3 appearances.
5 appearances.
5 appearances.
Yep. 5 appearances, 2 wins. Yep.
That's good. That's like John Elway. 5 appearances, 2 wins.
Yeah.
Quarterback.
And like we said, Bill Belichick is probably better than that. Without looking at some of the other head coaches of the past, like Tom Landry, Chuck Noll. I'm not sure how many Chuck Noll won back in the day, but Belichick been to 8 won 6. 4. I think that's the most, right?
Yeah, Chuck Noll won 4.
Yeah. So
hey, I got here's a question for you. This is something Jay Green would appreciate. The Steel Curtain. Okay, they won 4 Super Bowls in the 70s, but the last 2 Super Bowls they won, who was their defensive coordinator?
Who was their defensive coordinator?
Yep.
In what years was it?
78 and 79.
Oh, defensive coordinator. Chuck Noll was their coach, right?
Yep. And, Bradshaw, Lynn Swan, they had all them guys. The last 2 back-to-back Super Bowls they won. The last 2.
Was it Dick LeBeau? No, Dick LeBeau was later, right?
Later. He was Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, well, Dick LeBeau also the coordinator under Bill Cowher too, right?
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know.
Probably the best defensive coordinator of all time, probably Dick LeBeau. Would you say?
Yeah. Dick LeBeau or one of the Ryan fellas.
I would have said Buddy Ryan, but he wasn't a defensive coordinator long enough. I think he had the best season as a defensive coordinator, 85 Bears.
Buddy Ryan, Rex Ryan. But I wouldn't argue with that about Dick LeBeau being the best. But no, I don't know who was the defensive coordinator.
The 78-79 Steel Curtain, those 2 Super Bowls. Their defensive coordinator was Michigan State's head coach in the 1980s, and in the early 90s before Nick Saban replaced him, George Perlis.
George Perlis.
George Perlis was their defensive coordinator. God rest his soul. Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. He was a good, respectable coach. I mean, he coached Michigan State all those years, but he was like there during the Judd Heathcote era when Judd Heathcote coached the basketball team.
Yeah.
That's basically the years that Perlis was their football coach. And he was their coordinator.
I did not know that.
Yep, little fun fact.
Little fun fact.
I'm full of fun facts.
All right, man. Well, this has been a great conversation. I think it's time to wrap it up. I don't think we have any more ammo in the tank for this conversation.
No, it was fun, man. It's good to honor Don Shula.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up today.
Okay. Hey, Wednesday. We'll be back Wednesday, right?
Wednesday or Thursday? Wednesday or Thursday?
Well, okay. It would have to be early Thursday, though, if we do Thursday.
Well, I don't care.
Because this is a rented laptop.
We'll have to coordinate with our two guests for that day as far as the topic.
Is that the wrestling? Is that the wrestling one?
Yeah. So next week or later this week, we're going to be talking about some wrestling with a couple of our previous guests. Yeah, with New Jack.
Okay. Oh, that's going to be totally different than this discussion.
Yeah. So that's our plan for Thursday. We'll be back with another episode with a couple of our guests from previous episodes. We're hoping to have on Mr. Young and Mr. Fordham back, our two other wrestling nerds on the show, and hopefully talk about Mr. New Jack from ECW fame. We saw the Dark Side of the Ring episode, and I just felt like it was something we had to talk about just because it's so interesting. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. And so Thursday we're going to be doing another episode with talking about New Jack. So
okay. Now we want to have him on the show in the future. So let's represent him well.
Right.
I mean, we're going to talk facts about him.
Yeah.
But that would one more thing, Dan. It would be fun during that episode when we have hopefully Fordham and Vince will be able to do it, or at least one of them. Man, it would be fun if somehow we could get questions from people on what they think of New Jack and what he was doing. Because any negativity and this and this and this, that would get me going. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be strange. Maybe we can post that on our Facebook page about have people post some questions and we'll pose those to the group and we'll see what they say. But hopefully we can have those two guys on and that's what we're going to be doing Thursday. So make sure you guys come back and check out that episode on Thursday.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time.
Okay. God rest Don Shula. It was nice talking about him.
Yes.
Condolences to the family and big loss in the sports world.
All right. Yes, rest in peace, Don Shula.